Hello, everyone. And today we're back for another episode of the Justin Caviar Show. My guest today, very special guest, my guest today is Mar De Carlo of Mar De Carlo Enterprises. Mar is a life and business alchemist, CEO, motivational speaker, coach, author, and artist. Mar is the founder of the International Parenting and Health Institute, Association of Professional Sleep Consultants, Business Sanctuary, and Physical Awakening. Mar, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, Justin.
Absolutely. So, Mar, give people an overview of what you do, and we'll just jump right into it.
Sure. The number one thing that I do is I help people unravel and have clarity, unravel the challenges that are happening in their life. So really get to the root cause of any challenge they're undergoing, whether it's a business challenge, health challenge, relationship challenge. I help them see very clearly what the root cause is of that challenge. And then we work together to find a way to practically apply solutions. And that is a big part of what I do, in addition to providing a lot of business coaching and career training.
Absolutely. So what would you say is like your favorite thing to do? Your most passionate thing? Out of all the things you do, what's number one? What do you look forward to in the morning?
What I look forward to. I look forward to motivating and inspiring people. That is my number one thing. We easily get so caught up in our own stuff, in our own limitations. We trick ourselves a lot about what our possibilities and potentials are. When challenges come our way, we easily judge them. And there's just so much that comes at us, even from other people. And what I enjoy the most is helping people have those breakthroughs. Every time I see a graduate from my institute, or when I'm working with a client and I see that they have moved past a barrier of limitation, it's made my day. I'm on fire. I'm like, yes, this is why I do what I do.
Right. Absolutely. So let's get into that. What is, someone that enters your program and your school? What is someone to expect out of your program, and why would someone join initially from the beginning?
Thank you. One of the main reasons people enroll in our programs is because they are looking for a way to involve themselves in a career, in a profession that supports their own passion. They want to make a difference. They want to be part of transforming lives. They're people that love helping others, and they want to be part of an institution and part of an educational system that provides them the whole picture. They really want to understand how things function from a holistic perspective. And so what you'll find in our institute, although we will have specialties in a variety of different fields, for example, we'll have a maternity and child sleep course, or an integrative adult sleep course, or a nutrition course, etc. In each of those courses, you're going to learn and find out exactly how health and lifestyle functions together in each of those courses. So you're not just getting a narrow window when you come into our programs. You're really understanding from a holistic perspective, okay, I'm learning about nutrition, but how do my thoughts and beliefs affect that? Not only for my clients, but as a coach. So
Right.
we help our coaches and anyone who enrolls in our programs also not just professionally develop, but personally develop. And I think that's one of the key things that we offer that people like.
So I know you're a parent.
Yes.
What was the influence of being a parent, and how did that affect your business on helping other parents? There's good parents. We all know good parents, and we all know that there's not so good parents, right? So I have two questions. What makes a good parent? How do you identify someone that is good versus decent versus, bad or
Yes.
not so good? And also, how was your personal experience of being a mother?
Yes.
How has that impacted your business?
Thank you. Great questions. Thank you, Justin. I will start with the influential part because I think that leads in really nicely to the good versus bad parent.
Right.
I have been in the field of health and fitness for over 25 years, and under that umbrella, and lifestyle, and under that umbrella, I have had the wonderful, blessed opportunity to work on the front lines of the industry, where I worked with clients head on. And I also had the opportunity to work behind the scenes on the business end of things, managing a group exercise department, managing the personal training department, working on marketing, seeing all different sides of the business, working with customer relations and different conflict resolution, all sorts of things in the business where you really get to understand the whole picture. And what was very interesting for me is that this was my path. I saw myself as continuing to evolve on this path. And one of the areas that I had worked in had been supporting prenatal and postnatal moms as clients who, wanted to better their health and so on. And so I already had a lot of training and knowledge in a variety of the things that we're already teaching. But what happened is when I became a parent, and I went through my path of pregnancy. And then after that, when I gave birth and a year and a half later, I became a single mom, I saw very clearly, not only from my personal experience, but also just from having had a lot of trainings under my belt, I saw very clearly that there was a gap that I could fulfill based on the knowledge and skill set that I had, and also on what I could do to really support the number of families that I worked with. And what was very interesting was that my plan was to offer that solely through my own personal business. But when I got into a situation where I became a single parent, and I knew that I could not do it on my own, I knew that I needed support. I knew that I needed to find a way to take care of my daughter and myself to survive, right? And my health and so on. Because I'm a huge role model. I really believe that everything that you teach people, even though we're not perfect, at some point or other, you have to really, if you want to be authentic and honest, then you agree and are committed to be on that path of role modeling it, right? So if I'm talking to somebody about nutrition or sleep, I don't expect myself to be perfect. I'm a human being, but I do expect myself to be committed on that path and do whatever I can to be the best that I can be. So what ended up happening is that when I clearly saw that I could not handle on my own my personal business, a lot of family and friends were recommending, okay, go back into the management side of the business that you were doing before, do that full time, get a nanny for your daughter. But because I was a first time mom and I was in a new location and on my own, it felt not right for my path at the time. Although that's what many people do and it could be right for them. For me, something internally was saying that is not your way. And I'm so glad I listened to that voice, because what ended up happening is I spent a few days going within and meditating a bit. And I reached out to my community. And then what I gave birth to and what just came forward was a few people came forward and said, we are not available to work under your business and work for your business, but can you teach us to do what you're doing for your business? We want to learn your business model. We're so inspired by you. We want to do what you're doing. And so that is when a light bulb went off and I realized, wow, I could reach more people. I could help and transform lives in such a much more tremendous way by training other professionals to do what I did. And that's also when I realized that all the training that I had on the management side, on the business end of things for many years, I realized that that was coming full force and full circle to really support me on this path. So that's how that unfolded. And it's interesting because along that whole entire journey, so here we are 12 years later, it's been very humbling because your children grow. I have 2 children now. So my business started with my first child, Bella. And I learned very quickly many humbling things. When you are in the parenting field and in the health field, it's so easy to have so much pressure and so many expectations. One of the things that I woke up to immediately, very quickly, is that you're not supposed to have it all together all the time. Life is about learning and growing. And so if you can just open up to that and be committed to learning and growing, then no matter what comes your way, that commitment will help you get through it. And then you can go back and give more to people. So when it comes to good versus bad parent, for me, that is I would say those terminologies are very limiting. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a good versus bad. I believe every human being has elements of days that they're, feeling optimal and feeling like they have it together. And then there are days where old patterns will come in or challenges will come in and we feel like we're at our limit. And that's part of being a human being. And I feel that you can argue what technically good or bad is, but I feel that if we just set those descriptions or, judgments aside, then we can see that we're much more than that. I mean, obviously you can use those terms for certain things, but in general,
Right.
I feel like can be very limiting.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty interesting. The way that you explained it that way, because a lot of people, they look at it black or white, right? You're either a good parent, you're there for your son or daughter, you set them up, you would give anything for them. You might even, you would sacrifice yourself for your kid, right? And then we see the other ones that people run out on their kid, right? So
Yes.
obviously, it's very clear that that one parent is identified as a good parent, and the other parent is identified as a great parent or an impeccable parent.
Right.
What are some of the things I'm curious to ask you? Because this is one of my passions in uh, kids developing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
The first part of my life is to build like an empire and have a big brand and change people's lives. But the second part of my life, once I'm retired, is I want to have a foundation, and I don't know exactly how that's going to look, but have a foundation for kids that they might come from a not so fortunate situation,
Yes.
and they can go and have a higher education and be surrounded by supportive people versus the bad things that we all know that when you identify bad parenting,
Right.
all the things that these children see that they shouldn't necessarily
Right.
be, and they don't necessarily deserve it because they're born into it, right? So I have a passion for that regardless, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you on the show, because I'm
Thank you.
curious for myself. I'm sure there's a lot of single parents and listeners, single parents that are listening to this, and a lot of our listeners have children as well, so I think they would definitely provide a lot of value from this. Now I'm curious for myself, what were some of the things as you're teaching other people on how to be better? What were some of the things that you picked up on yourself that you didn't maybe realize that you were doing? You kind of were on autopilot, but when you started teaching other people, you
Mhm.
said, wow, maybe I'm not doing this right. And I didn't even realize it until I started talking and coaching other parents.
Yes. For me, I think one of the greatest things was the forgiveness and the compassion for myself. Because, see, one of the reasons why I feel a lot of parents get stuck or feel bad about parenting
Right.
is comparison. It's so easy to compare, just like what you said, those two situations that you gave. You gave two situations of what might make a great parent or good parent, etc.
Right.
And the first thing people do is that they judge. They look at a situation. The thing is, we don't know the context. We don't know the full context. We don't know what's happened with that parent. We don't know what they've just been through, right? Like,
Mm.
no one knew the behind the scenes of Mar De Carlo and what I went through as a single parent. They didn't know the emotional abuse situation I was going through. They didn't know
Yeah.
the dire straits I was in at the time financially. I mean, when people look at situations, a lot of times they make their judgments just based on surface value, right? On the surface context of what they think they know. They don't
Yeah.
know all the complexities and all the depth of what's involved. And that's why I have a lot of compassion. So for me, I think one of the greatest things that I learned along the way in coaching my clients and also professionals was the forgiveness and compassion part, because then I realized, you know, this whole time I've been putting so much pressure on myself to be the best that I can be. And I realized that it's not so much about showing up and how much you teach your child as it is how much your child can see you get through those challenging moments. For
Mm.
me, that's very powerful. And I feel that empowers a lot of parents, because a lot of parents, like you said, sacrifice their own life and say, okay, I have kids now. My life is over pretty much. I
Right.
have to do whatever it takes, make the money I can make. And because of that, there's a part of them that dies a little bit, in the sense that their joy, what connected them to their joy or their own dreams, they feel that they have to sacrifice, and then they live them through
Yeah.
their child. So one of the first things that happens is parents then may subconsciously put the pressures on their own children to fulfill dreams that they didn't as a result. Or what they'll do is they'll start internally, and again, subconsciously, they're not intentionally doing it, resenting the fact that they had to give so much up because they didn't realize how much was involved to raise their children.
Right.
But when you realize that your children are the greatest gifts given to you, because it's not just about what you teach them and how perfect you are, but it's about how they're helping you evolve as a human being. Like, how much my children have helped me evolve. Wow. But I had to open up to that. I had to say,
Mm.
my children are teaching me as much as I'm teaching them. And if I am very clear and I let go of the fact that I am not perfect, even though I'm in this parenting and health world, I'm not perfect. I've carried on these patterns from my family and generations of how I was raised and what I've been through and my experiences. but I can show up committed. And when my child says, "Oh gosh, mom, did you really have to yell like that?" Or "That was annoying." And I have the
Yeah.
capacity to say and hold myself accountable, say, "Yeah, you're absolutely right." But be committed to the fact that number one, I'm human. Number two, I'm committed to showing up and, like in a workout, doing what I can to evolve to the next level. That really makes that whole journey of parenting so beautiful and empowering. It's like a workout. And that's what my book, Physical Awakening, that will be coming out in the near future, is all about, which is, how people love working out in the gym. A lot of people, not everybody, but or the
Yeah.
gym or in general. And often when we're met with life's challenges, and when they're difficult emotionally, we tend to avoid them. But in actuality, they're no different than a workout. And so if you treat them like a workout and you see them
Right.
like a workout, you realize, wow, this challenge, right, is like a weight that I'm lifting. And if I can move through this and understand the reward I'm going to get out of it, I'm going to become stronger in the end, or more,
Exactly.
have more resilience or endurance or whatever it is.
So that's interesting. So I'm writing down because I want to make sure that I get your book right away. When does your book come out, by the way?
So we don't have an exact date just yet, because when COVID came in, I had to do a lot of rearranging in my
Right.
personal life with my children, because they're homeschooling now. So that was a big shift that I did not expect.
Yep.
The plan originally was to get it out at the end of 2021. So we're looking
Okay.
probably into early 2022, but I will be sending out excerpts from my book and, highlights and things like that on, in this journey. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll make sure that, all the show notes or all the notes are in the show description below. So let's say you're a new parent, right? You didn't expect it. You're just young kids, and you end up having a child.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the biggest thing with your expertise and being, one of the leading experts in this field?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best advice that you could give them on what to expect and what they're going to do wrong? And here, instead of making that mistake, I'm just going to tell you now.
Right.
What would you say?
All right. So given the fact that, every situation is going to be slightly different, there might be some slightly different advice depending on what's happening, which is my holistic way. But I will tell
Right.
you in general, what I would advise in general are some really great foundations. All right. That
Okay.
everyone will see are an important part of parenting. Number one is you have an opportunity now. Before, if you weren't motivated enough to be the best that you can be as a human being, now's your time. Now is your time. Your children are giving you an opportunity to be the best you can be. They're giving you a purpose, all right, to be a role model like you've never been before. And it's not about being perfect. It's about finding the things that motivate you, inspire you, that make you happy. Because when you give that to yourself, that is an automatic, natural gift that your children get just by witnessing the unfolding of you living to your human potential, number one.
Right.
In order to do that, depending on your circumstances, which happens to be a lot of people, support. Many people feel ashamed and feel embarrassed to ask for help. And I always encourage people, when you ask for help, you actually show people that you are a true leader. True leaders don't do it on their own. Leaders are, team oriented, as you already know, right? We collaborate. We understand that to influence more people, to reach a far greater audience, to be the best that we can be, it takes a team. It takes a supportive team to do that. So reevaluating where you are now and saying, okay, do I have the support systems in my life that are going to inspire me and motivate me? What kinds of TV shows and movies are you watching? Which friends are you hanging out with? Family members. And there might be some people in your life that might be difficult to, quote unquote, get rid of. Like, many of us have that one family member or friend that is the naysayer, or when we're around them, we feel like our energy is exhausted. Okay, we work through that. There's many tips I can give for that, but that's another conversation. But what you do is you then say, you evaluate, you say, okay, what can I then do to supplement that? What can I do to balance that out so that while I have this part of my life that's been weighing me down, I'm now adding in that motivation that I need, right? For some people that might be listening to a Tony Robbins, might be listening to your podcast, might be reading certain books, might be having even, some people love visuals, so pictures or music. I mean, there's a variety of ways that you can feed your inspiration. But when you've got that inspiration And when you reconnect with that inner joy, then your capacity to make better decisions for yourself is going to increase. That probability increases. You'll find yourself saying, I want to sleep more. I want to actually gain more energy. So I'm going to actually go to bed a little earlier. I'm going to eat a little better. And that
Right.
happens when you feed yourself that inspiration or motivation. But if you're exhausted, you're at your wit's end, you don't have the support that you need, and here you are trying desperately to make better choices for yourself, you're wondering why you're stuck, usually is because your support systems and the things you're surrounded with are not enough to uplift you. So you need that as a basis. You need that as a foundation, 100%.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, how does someone maintain or increase their stamina with becoming a parent? Because obviously, we've all seen those parents where they're all over the map. Everything is chaotic. How does
Yes.
someone keep the stamina to have a career and or have a business? You
Mhm.
know, you're paying all these bills, and then you have the kids, and the kids are driving you nuts. How does someone keep the stamina, or how does someone increase their stamina?
Beautiful question. So again, for every individual, there'll be slightly different solutions based on what's happening. But in general, what I would say is one of the greatest things that I have learned and that I support other people in understanding is letting go of what you think it should look like. Because everybody thinks, and this is where they struggle. Okay, my day should look exactly like this. And it
Right.
should be this amount of time of my workout, this amount of time for work. And your kids teach you, and this is kind of the beauty again of having children. You know what? Life is also about being adaptable and flexible. So I'll give you a great example. There's been quite a few times where I planned for my 1 hour workout, right?
Right.
And guess what? It's going to be 45 minutes that day or even 30 minutes that day. And that's part of the process. When you're able to adapt, and there's a beautiful saying, I'm sure you've heard this wise saying that says, it's not the most intelligent or the most strong that's survived, it's the most adaptable. That couldn't
Right.
be furthest from the truth, especially for parenting. Because when you get into this flow of adaptation, and when you let go of being perfect, and when you are able to, even today for me, today was a day of adaptation, as you can see, even from our interview, everything. And I just go with it. I'm like, okay, breathe, adapt,
Yeah.
breathe,
Yeah.
adapt. The more you do that, you build a resilience and you also gain a comfortability where you become very skilled at it. And so, yes, you do have structure. Structure is important, having a plan, having a structure. But then within that, having the ability to adapt to those moments where you say, oh, okay, I planned for this hour, it's going to be 45 minutes. And then
Mm.
having that ability to release and let go. And I think for me, that is one of the most helpful things in parenting because often parents get so hung up, naturally so, on having to have things so structured and organized. And they get so rigid that when children, through their circumstances and life brings them, a variety of adventures, that adapting part becomes a little bit challenging if you're not used to it.
Yeah. Do you think, maybe meditation or some type of mindfulness practice could help you reset, I guess you could say your computer, reset the body and the mind and able to deal with maybe your kids, but also everything that's going on?
Yes, 100%. So another foundation, so two of the foundations that I provided you was having the support system and also filling yourself up with inspiration and motivation. Another
Yeah.
important foundation is having that space. But once again, people feel that space is, I have to go to meditation for 30 minutes.
Mm.
That space literally can be 2 or 3 minutes. And what's so beautiful about today's technology, even though there is kind of a flip side to that too, and people can spend too much screen time, on the
Yeah.
advantage side of things, we have such easy access now, even for free to download some beautiful apps or even on your computer and in your car, you can even do this. Take a couple of minutes and do a breathing exercise. And, just doing that, because see what happens, most people don't understand, well, what does this really do for me? What it does is that your nervous system, like you said, reset is a key term here,
Yeah.
reset and recharge. Your nervous system has an opportunity to release. And so the analogy I give people a lot is like this. Imagine a rubber band. So your body's like this rubber band.
Mm.
And you're throughout the day pulling this rubber band and building up a bunch of tension. And if you don't release that tension, if you don't let go of that rubber band, what's going to happen is that rubber band, the tension will keep increasing. And so the more you keep going without releasing that rubber band, by the time you do let go, which for most people is nighttime, right? Or when they come
Yeah.
from
Right.
that impact of when you release it is going to hit too hard. But if throughout the day you get into this mode of, okay, I'm there's a little bit of tension, I'm releasing a little bit. You're not going to reach that stage of tension that once you release that rubber band, it's going to come full force at you. So it's a very beautiful dynamic. And when you learn to give yourself, I call them daily pauses, little pockets, little moments. And for everybody, and this is the beauty, there's a number of tools. Some people, it could be a guided meditation. Some people, it could literally be walking across the street to this beautiful garden and just being in the sun for a few minutes, or listening to the rain. I mean, there's a variety of things that you can do to just settle in and, reset.
Right. Absolutely. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are in your field? I know that you and your company are like one of the leading experts in parenting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say the biggest or some of the biggest misconceptions that maybe you see other companies or other people do that you don't agree with?
That's a really great question. I do feel that everything and everyone has a path and an offering. And while I may not agree to how I see certain things unfolding, or maybe not agree, maybe that's not the right, here's the right word that I think describes what I feel more. I don't feel aligned. While I don't feel aligned with how other companies may be approaching things, I do see their value, and I'm grateful for the fact that they're even out there and that their intention is to support and help others. So I always say that to my team and to everybody. It's like, never have I the intention to throw someone under the bus or say they're doing something wrong, because you know what? They're on their path, and it's not for me to judge for them on their path, right?
Right.
All I can do is be on my path and know how I do things and what I discover and offer those gifts. With that said, one thing that I do see often is that there are many cookie cutter, one size fits all approaches to things. And while there are many general tips we can give, and as I shared with you throughout this interview so far, and I kind of put this little blurb in purposely so,
Right.
There's generalities, and generalities are great. But at the end of the day, when someone really needs help and really wants to know how to resolve their specific situation, we need to really understand specifically what is going on. Because even though 3 or 4 or 5 people may be going through this similar situation, the circumstances in that situation, the person's thoughts and beliefs, their state of health, who they're living with or not living with, what's going on, all those things do matter when you want to apply practical solutions. So for me and for our company, how we train our professionals is, it's not a one size fits all. It's a team oriented approach. Everything that we do trains our professionals to learn and understand how to think holistically and apply things holistically. And what that means is understanding that while every situation does need a foundation, a general foundation. So there's general foundations that I provided today that are necessary, for everyone. How we go about in supporting people will really depend on exactly what is going on, where they've been, where they are today, and what their goals are, and how we will get them to the future.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good point that you made. So I have a question. I'm very curious about this. How does someone that's a single mom, and you became a single mom after you had your firstborn, correct?
Yes.
And then you had an additional,
my son. Yeah.
Your son. Yeah. So how does someone like you that has all this pressure of being a mother and, paying bills and all the generic stuff that everyone has to deal with that has children?
Yes.
How does someone like you do all that and also be one of the dominating forces in this industry? So I want to switch over to the business side, right?
Sure.
How do you stay afloat of just dominating the industry, of being one of the, the leaders in this industry while managing everything else and not having that support from a spouse?
So thankfully, I do have support from their father, meaning that he is involved in their life. I'm just not with them.
Right.
So he's involved in their life. So I do have that support. But if he wasn't in their life, I definitely would find a support that could support me through that process, because Thankfully, where there's a will, there's always a way. Okay. And there's always a solution. And it's a matter of just finding what that solution is for you specifically. So that's what I tell everybody. So for me, the number one thing that supports me in doing what I do is baby steps. I'm very clear while I have a mountain load of things that need to get done. I'm very clear that they're not all meant to get done today and at this point in time. So that pressure's off.
Yeah.
I'm very clear that, okay, I have to start with step 1, then step 2, and I've got that plan. Secondly, I have a support system. Okay. So I have people that really help me with my business. I have people that help me with my children. 3, I am so darn creative and I fulfill myself with my creativity. And this is one of the, another foundation. I guess it goes along with the inspiration, motivation piece, but it's not just about being inspired by other people. It's also about expressing your inspiration. I always encourage my clients, my team, even on my social media, to involve yourself in an expressive art, whatever that is for you. It could be writing, it could be painting, it could be singing, it could be dancing, it could be, working out, whatever it is that is having you actively move through your own inspiration. Because it's one thing to be passive and to receive information. It's another thing when you feel that inspiration, that motivation and drive coming through an expression. I can't tell you, because people say, wow, are you a singer? Because they see me sing. Are you a ballroom dancer? I say, well, I do those as hobbies and for fun, but those are the very things that actually inspire me to do my work for my institute. As an entrepreneur, I actually recharge. I get more motivated and more energy, not just by meditating, but by recharging through these expressions that bring me joy. They're fun. It's like, think of it like play. I'm not sure, this will be in my book. I have a section about this as well, but play is such an important part of human development, not just for children, but for adults. Most adults have forgotten how to play. Play doesn't mean you just, it's not what it always looks like for children.
Yeah, go climb a tree. Hey guys, we'll be back. We're going to go climb a tree and make a tree house.
I mean, some people might want to do that as adults, but
hey, if you're into building tree houses, that's cool.
There you go. But for most of us, that really will mean, hey, taking a Zumba class, doing something that is out of the ordinary, out of the element, that will really just allow you to unwind. Like when I started painting, I was clear. I'm not out to be a painter. Same with my singing. I have a decent voice, but my goal when I worked with my vocal coach, she's like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to, release a song? I said, no, I just really want to enjoy my singing. I do this for fun. And maybe I'll add it into events to inspire people or something one day. But more than anything is fulfilling this joy inside of me, because when I'm stressed or when I'm, reach my peak, meditation is great. But when I sit there and I sing a fun song that I heard when I was a kid in the 80s, and then I'm looking at how I'm doing it and I'm laughing at myself, I mean, the amount of tension that just releases from my body and just makes me realize, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. How I can go back to my work and show up for other people is incredible. So I feel for me, for people to find an outlet that allows them to express themselves is huge. And that is where that is like one of the key, like one of the secret, it's not even a secret, but I see this missing because I see all this so serious meditation, do this, do it. It's like, guys, play, have fun, find something that brings you joy. And I promise you, you're going to start to see how things unravel very beautifully for you.
Yeah, you can definitely tell, because I follow you on all your social platforms. You could tell, like, when you're singing, you're not trying to win a Grammy or anything, but your voice is good. But you could just tell that you're, like we said before, resetting the computer.
Yes.
And what I mean, and when I say the computer, I mean resetting the mind and the brain to deal with everything that life throws at you. So I think that's a good point. I think a lot of people can gain value in whatever they do. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or maybe you're a singer, maybe you're an ice skater, doesn't matter. Is resetting the computer, doing something that's not so serious, like, especially with people like us where, we're type A, we want to be the best, we're competitive, to release and just say, listen, we're not doing this to win. We're doing this to have fun. Exactly. And the goal of this is to enjoy life, enjoy this specific moment at time. And then we'll go back to the competitive nature and trying to be the best at whatever we do. Exactly. But you're not going to be the best because it's not sustainable. If you're always driving, you're going to blow the engine.
Exactly. And the other piece to that, and you mentioned the competition or the competitive part, the
Yeah.
other beautiful piece when you find an outlet to express yourself in an authentic way, recognize more and more your uniqueness.
Mm.
Oh, I think we're back here. We're back.
We're back. We're
Back. Okay,
back.
thank you. Yeah, we got paused there for a moment. It's interesting because over the years, and it's very natural because I've pioneered a couple, or not just a couple, a number of little things. I see offshoots of what I've done and different ways people have expressed that, and also people who are trying to take credit for what I've done. And so people say, are you bothered by that? You know, it's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the creative outlets and the more that I've tuned into who I am and my own personal development, you recognize nobody can be you. So at the end of the day, of course, there's certain situations that do require some legal attention. Those are more on the rare side. But I'm just talking in general, you know, someone's
Yeah.
not plagiarizing, but they're trying to do something similar to what you've done. So you can look at it in a way, wow, I've inspired that person. And if they're trying to take credit for it, who cares? They're helping the world. Because at the end of the
Mm.
day, you're being authentic to yourself. You when you find that inner joy and when you feel so confident and strong in your own authenticity, you understand no one can match who you are. And so
Yeah.
when everyone finds that outlet and they discover that, then that whole competitive nature also becomes fun. You don't feel this hard deep pressure. Maybe
Yeah.
you just, you know, you witness it and you go, wow, okay. Like, for example, I'm working on this next project. I can't mention too much about it now, but I'm working on this next project. And life just so happened to bring on my way someone who is offering something, who they've followed me along my path. I've witnessed that, and they've kind of are taking certain amounts of credit, whatever. And they just are launching something right now. And it just so happens that what they're launching is beautiful, it's great, but it won't even compare to how I'm going to do something, which is going to be similar but very different. So
Right.
what happens is I get to see, wow, that is so cool that they're doing their own thing and I see what they're doing. But wow, I also get to see how I can do something like incredibly unique to me and
Mm.
authentic to me, and how that can't compare. And so anyway, so that's a beautiful part of it too.
Yeah. I want to touch back on what you said about, it's okay, even if they're plagiarizing you, it's okay because they're providing a healthy and strong value to the world. And it's interesting because Tesla's the same way. And Elon was in an interview and he said that Tesla has open patents. And I said, why would you do that? That's not most business owners would not say that's an intelligent move. He says, I really don't care about that. My mission is if someone wants to reproduce what Tesla's doing, good. That's a good thing. It's going to take everyone to electric only cars. And I think that's important in every field too, is yes, we all want to be the best and we all want to keep our stuff secret, but at the same time, are you moving humanity forward in a better way? And I think that's a good point that you touched on. I want to go
Exactly.
back. Yeah, I want to go back on your story and how Mar De Carlo became Mar De Carlo. Right? We've talked about you as a parent. We've talked about you recently within the past 10, 20 years since you've had your son and daughter. But I want to touch on who Mar De Carlo came from. What world did Mar De Carlo, and how did Mar De Carlo come to fruition?
Yes, it's so interesting. When I look at my path and my journey, I'm just in awe. And I continue to be in awe every day. It's such a blessing, you know, having that daily gratitude. I think also what you focus on, you strengthen. So another foundation for everybody is, you know, even no matter what is happening, there are things you can always see in your life that you can be grateful for. Even the opportunity to be living and breathing for another moment to find a solution. And I feel that's an important foundation. And when I look at my life, where I've been and where I am today, I see
Yeah.
that very, very clearly. I grew up in New York, so on the outskirts of New York
Mm,
City. Grew up in Astoria, Queens. I went to grammar school there, and then I went to school in the city. So I spent a majority of my time in New York City.
right.
And
How was that? That must have been in the 80s, right?
yeah,
That's when New York was pretty bad.
yeah, no, and it's interesting because I feel like I got a real boot camp training.
You yeah.
Life is just like every time I go through these things again, like that workout, I was like, wow, I really got to. All right, we're back. I'm not sure
There
what's
we go.
happening technically there, but so I feel like life really provided me a boot camp training, um,
Yeah.
and it allowed me to understand what it takes to survive on many levels. My parents came
Right.
as immigrants. I was working from the age of 10, in the sense that, my mom made it very clear that she's providing for me all my needs. But if I wanted all those extra things, like the hairspray and like all these extra things, well, I had to
Yeah.
learn, how to earn those things. And so from a very
Right.
young age, my entrepreneurial spirit began because I was very motivated and driven. Being in New York, what I love about New York is you get exposed to such a variety of people,
Hmm.
cultures, and things, and you get to explore and see so many different lifestyles and ways of living and
Right.
see what inspires you. And I was so inspired from such a young age to live the fullest that I could. And so I was so motivated and driven from ever since I could remember. I was making radio commercials on my little cassettes. I mean, I was doing all sorts of things. And when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you were an entrepreneur from such a young age.
Didn't even realize it.
I did not realize it and how creative I was and how
Yeah.
easily, when I worked for other companies, I would always find myself feeling limited in my capacity of expression. I wanted to make suggestions. I wanted to go here. I wanted to go there. Little did I know where it would take me. But what I will tell you, Justin, is, and this is where I want people to have hope, okay, where if you are in a position where you feel stuck, where you feel limited, I will tell you, it is through those most challenging moments that were my training ground. Okay. I didn't realize it back then because back then, when you're in it, you don't know. You're like, oh gosh, like, why is this
Yeah.
happening to me?
Right.
Now, in looking back, I realized, wow, I was given the greatest gift on this planet. This was like training that set me up to be where I am today. Because if I had not had that training, I don't know that I could do what I've done today, and expand to where I've expanded. And even, I will tell you another thing, is another side note, what you said about Elon. Elon knows Elon's Elon. No one can be Elon. Everybody knows that. Everybody could, like you said, do what he does. Elon is Elon, and
Yeah.
everyone knows it. And at the same time, I will tell you, in terms of teamwork, it's one thing to have competition, quote unquote. It's another thing to your alignments. One of the things I learned growing up in New York and through my path is being very clear on who's in your team, who wants to work with you, who's supporting you, and who's in it just along for the ride, if you will. And so that's
Right.
another whole area.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that because there's a lot to learn from that as well. And if you're open
Mm.
to it, and the more authentic you are to yourself and the more you learn about yourself, the easier it is for you to learn very quickly how to collaborate and align with people who truly do have the best interests for both of you. And it's not just one-sided, like a marriage or like, a relationship.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Yeah. I think growing up in the 80s in New York, you got the school of hard knocks to the fullest extent.
To
Would
the
you
full.
agree?
I agree 100%. Yes.
I'm sure there's other places that were just as bad, but the 80s in New York, people don't realize how bad it was. And if you did grow up there, it definitely was an interesting experience. So
Yeah.
that it's understandable now how you became the person you are
Yes.
because you
100%.
got put through the ringer,
Yes. And it's
for
interesting.
lack of a better term.
Like I said much, much earlier when we started the interview, people don't often see that. They make
Yeah.
assumptions. They look at where you are today. They compare where you are today to where they are. And then they don't really understand and see the full picture of what
Yeah.
led you to that. And when they do, then they recognize, well, number one, they can have hope for those of them that, people that need hope.
Right.
But then also for other people to have compassion too, and to go, wow, I didn't realize, they see who you are today. Wow, look, she has it all together. Look, but they don't
Yeah.
realize everything you've been through to get to where you are today, right?
Exactly. They think
So,
overnight success. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
I think that's a good point. And I want to talk about you growing up in the 80s in New York and Manhattan and the different boroughs. I want to touch on that real quick
Mhm.
because you've definitely acquired thick skin. How does someone with your experience, how do they acquire thick skin? How do they maintain thick skin? And how do they teach their kids thick skin?
Mhm. I will definitely say to you, it's been a roller coaster. I think a lot of my awareness started at a young age. So I
Mm,
had this inner voice that I was very close to from a young age. I don't know, I haven't tracked it enough to tell you very clearly when exactly that started. But what I can tell you is from when I can remember, no matter how dark things got, I always found a way to connect. There was like something inside me that said, it's okay, hang on,
right.
just
Right.
hang on there. And that's what I did. And, I always was open. Okay, so my openness, here it is. I was always open to the signs for hope too. If I
Mm,
had a dark day, someone would smile. That one smile. And that's why don't ever, all of you out there, never undervalue the power of the smallest of gestures, whether it's a comment, a smile, a look in someone's eye. Okay.
yeah.
It goes a long way because from when I can remember, it was all those moments. Music had been a huge part of my life that I used as an outlet to also get me through. I remember listening to music to empower me, to help me get through dark moments. And
Right.
so, what was great is that every moment that was challenging that I overcame, there came a reward. There came
Mm,
like something that I learned that opened up my eyes, that helped me move further on my path. Whether it was a lending hand, whether it was a job opportunity, whether it was something that just gave me spiritual joy. And so that is what kept me going along the way, that allowed the thick skin and the resilience to build over time. And I'll tell you, when I got to a point where I was a single mother and I started this business, I went through a tremendous crossroads because for a long time I had been working for other companies. And then I started working on my own with my own business. But then when I started tapping into giving
mm,
on a much more, how do you say, impactful level internationally. And I would say one that was not just about me and my personal business, but now is training other professionals. Now I was entering a sector where I have other
mm,
companies that were coming in and
yeah.
really, having that very narrow eye or magnifying glass on me. And so at
Mm,
that point in time, it really took me, and this was what helped me overcome this, that thick skin, which was, this is not about me. I was
mm,
given this tremendous amount of motivation and inspiration. I had to remember why I was doing what I was doing. It wasn't about
mm,
just earning a living, because I could
right.
have easily done that. I could have gone to a management job. What gave me the opportunity to make the decision to go on this off-beaten path was that I had something in me that said, you know what? Wow, I want to inspire and transform lives. And something in me said, you can do that, Mar. You have it in you.
Right.
Believe in yourself. And so when I stepped into that path, into that belief, that's when the challenges came from these quote unquote competitors or people that, who do you think you are? And who is this woman? But
Yeah.
then what helped me to get past that was, why are you doing this? Because this was not something I planned. This was something that came on my path. Why are you doing this? And you were given a purpose. So keep showing up. And also, my intention is very heartfelt. I'm not sitting here
Mm,
crunching numbers every day. How much money did I make today? So I know in my heart of hearts, when I look at myself in the mirror every day, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now,
right.
obviously, you have to keep a financially sound business. So, of course, I manage things appropriately financially. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is there's a balance to it all. And my sole purpose comes from a much deeper place, that it's not just a superficial place. And that is what allows me to have the thick skin that I do and to show up and say, yes, this is who I am, because it's not about Mar. It's about this force working through Mar.
Right.
And I'm just a channel showing up for that.
How does somebody teach that to their kids or their employees or their friends that might be going through a difficult time, or maybe you just want to instill those core values into your son or daughter, or,
Yes.
how does somebody do that?
Yes, that is a great question. And with this program that I'm going to be launching, so Physical Awakening will be coming out in 2022. The end of this month, beginning of next month, so end of April, beginning of May, I'm actually launching a program for coaches and consultants that is exactly tapping into this specifically. Because what happens a lot of times, most of us in the coaching consulting field,
Right.
we love what we do. We love helping people. We love learning. We love teaching. We enjoy that. We gain so many rewards by seeing how other people evolve. We want to help in every way that we can. And of course, naturally, our culture teaches us that the more we know, the more we can help. The more education that you have, the more learning you do, the more skilled you are, the better you can help. But one of the things that often goes, underneath the carpet and missing is that it's not just about that. That is a big piece. I will not deny that, because I am a learning junkie. If you see my background and the list of things that I've learned and do and still learn, you can naturally see that I love to learn and I'm obsessed with learning. But there's another side to that that is just as important, which is how you're living. And that is the big piece. And we cannot deny that. I talked about that a little bit earlier too, about being committed to that, because I can talk through my mouth all I want to my clients and to my children about how to live. But if I am not living in any way, shape, or form that way, and I'm somehow in denial about that, I'm only fooling myself. And one of the most powerful ways to teach someone is how you're living. So when someone goes to my page, they might immediately, in my Instagram, for example, they might immediately not connect the dots and say, oh, well, what is, her Parenting Health Institute, and what does she have to do with her singing or her modeling, or what she's doing? But once they start to know more, they start to recognize, oh my gosh, these are the things this woman is living. She's literally talking, she's walking her talk. She's literally finding the things that fuel her, that inspire her, that then allow her to give back more to her company. Because when I'm talking for 3 hours straight on sleep, to our professionals, I need a break from that. I'm not just going to get off and now talk more about that and burn myself out. I'm going to find an outlet that will give me the energy and the joy that I need so that I can go back tomorrow and do more of that, for my company.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest way to create any kind of impactful change is through the way that you live. And it's not about being perfect. Sometimes our most humbling moments, our most human moments can teach the most perfect things. And I think people see that every day on social media, where, how many times we see a story of someone that said, look, guys, I know that I'm a role model, but I just went through a depression. And people are like, thank you for sharing that, because it made someone else feel like, oh my gosh, they're human like me, and I have hope too. So
it's not the highlight reel that everyone sees typically.
Exactly. The more you show up in your human self, the more you show people what it takes to be where you are, and you're open with that. Like, I'm also open. I tell people, like, I love wearing makeup. I love being creative. This is who I am. And I think that the more you are who you are and you role model that, people can be inspired by that. And also, you have to let go of those that aren't. So you're not meant. Another FYI, I don't know if you was going to ask this, but this is very important, which is another key thing about building the thick skin and resilience. Just let go of the people that are not meant to like you. Who cares? In life, we have a duality. We have a non-duality and we have a duality. You're going to have people that like you and people that don't like you. Every time you get caught up in who doesn't like you, remember that as many people don't like you, there's as many people at the same time that like you. So as long as you remember that, you're not going to get stuck in who doesn't like you. Not everybody's meant to like you, and that's the way it goes. So just stay focused on who likes you, and that also helps you build thick skin.
Yeah, I think that's important too, because you might see, oh, this person doesn't like me, but you don't really know what's going on in their life. They could have a traumatic experience at home.
Yes.
They might have came from a traumatic experience, and maybe their mind is molded a certain way that maybe you can't relate because you grew up a different way, but
Right.
you're just seeing the surface level meaning of this person doesn't
Exactly.
like me. Why? But you don't know the whole backstory. I tell that to a lot of my friends that are on the dating scene, and they go, I don't know why this girl didn't text me back, or I don't know why this guy didn't text me back. I said, you have to realize, yes, it might be you, but also it might not. It might be them. It might be their life, what they're going through. What's their career like? Did they just lose their job?
Exactly.
Did they just have like a heartbreak? Are they going through a family issue? Maybe their dad died. Maybe their uncle died. Their grandma died. You just don't know.
Exactly.
And you can't take it personal. Now, by
No.
all means, it might be you. You might be a little clingy or something and
Right.
unattractive
Right.
in the way that you act, right? Your actions might be a little bit unattractive, but also you have to take in consideration that it might not be you. It might just be everything. It might be a whole variety of different reasons. And you can't
Exactly.
take that personal.
Exactly. Which is fine because while to someone you might be clingy or unattractive, to someone else, it's the
Yeah,
perfect.
they love it.
They want it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you hit the nail on the head, Justin, which is when you don't personalize it and you
yeah,
just show up and you continue to be you and
yeah,
you stay authentic to that, the right people will continue showing up. It's when you try to please the people that you're not meant to please, like you said, because they've got their own stuff going on, their own reasons. It's when
right.
you try to push hard to please other people. It's when you try to be somebody that you're not. That's where you're going to get caught up in a lot of drama. But if you're
Yeah,
truly honest to yourself, you say, look, this is who I am. I have things to learn too, and I'll show up for those. But I'm going to be authentic to who I am, and I'm going to authentically show up. You're going to end up aligning with the
yeah,
people that are meant to
yeah.
receive that much easier.
Yeah, people aren't going to advertise their bad news, right? So the bad things that are going on in their personal life, they're not going to tell you.
Right.
Maybe your close friends, or if
Right.
someone that you're extremely close to, or your spouse or whatever, but they're not going to advertise all these bad things are going on in my life. They're going to play the highlight reel just like they are on
Right.
social media. They're going to do the same thing when they're out at the bars or the clubs or the restaurants. They're going to play like everything's amazing, and for all we know, they could be devastated inside. So you can't take it personal, and I think that's a good point that you touched on for sure. Where does Mar see herself moving forward? I know you're a parenting expert, and you're the CEO of a huge company. You have a lot of staff underneath you, but where does Mar and maybe the company in general, where are you guys going?
Oh, thank you for that question. I see, and what I'm seeing, and we'll see how life also presents herself on my path, because it's always a beautiful surprise. It's my planning, and then there's surprises along the way. Where I see the company evolving is we're headed into really being, I would say, the go-to, we're going to be known as the go-to company for personal professional development in any field. If you want to personally and professionally develop and you want to do it in the most powerful, impactful way, then and holistically, then
Yep.
we are the organization for that. And what I see myself doing is right now I've been operating and managing the company for many, many years. And what I see myself is evolving out of that role slowly so that someone will be solely operating the company behind the scenes so that I can actually be more in the public eye. Because what I love doing and what I see myself doing is events. And those events will be interactive. So it's not just about what's in here and talking,
Right.
talking, talking, but I want to give people an experience. I've had many profound experiences. And I really do feel that learning and everything that we learn through the mind goes a very long way and is beautiful.
Yeah.
But some of the most powerful experiences that I've had that have really woken me up have been through the
Mm.
physical experiences that I've had. And so that's coming out of my book, Physical Awakening, but it's also going to be coming out for events that I do. So I see myself evolving into the public eye and doing more event-oriented, experiential things for people so that they can be
Mm.
inspired and they can, transform their paths.
Mm. Absolutely. And all the information is going to be in the show notes and the show description below. Now, I have a question for you. Um, how does I'm going to go back to parenting real fast, and then we can
Sure.
move forward from that. How does someone that maybe had a rough life and grew up in a really bad situation, and now they have kids, how do they overcome that? Like, this is their experience, right? How do they overcome their bad experience and completely reverse it and make their kid or their children not like them in a way? Like, how do they realize that? And also, a two-part question: how does someone that grew up amazing and they had everything, and maybe they're a little bit spoiled and they have kids, what do they do to maintain that, or what's the right way to approach it in that situation?
Absolutely. This really goes back once again to personal development, self evaluation, and really recognizing and understanding that when you are committed to showing up most optimally for yourself in whatever capacity that you're humanly able to,
Yeah.
that really then sets the path and the way for everything. And what I would say, number one, is it takes awareness. And for someone to be aware, it really does require an openness and a curiosity,
Yeah.
where you really understand that you're bigger than yourself. You're bigger than this human self. A lot of people who I feel are stuck just feel that they're just, this human body, but there's more to it, right? On a spiritual
Right.
sense. But in order to even recognize that, it really does require some space. Think of it like this. It's like if you're filling your mind up and your day up with so much, okay, from television to social media to radio to this to that, conversations, and on and on and on, your ability to evaluate yourself, to see yourself. And I know David Goggins, for example, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, I
Tony
love
Robbins,
David.
yeah,
Yeah.
he talks about this. He's like, you have to face yourself. Okay.
That's a good
Face
point.
Facing yourself is number one. When you have the ability to do that, and how you can do that is through compassion and forgiveness. Because here's the thing, this is the next thing. There's this book by Mark Wolin called It Didn't Start With You. I highly
Mm.
recommend it. There's a whole actual, how do you say, field in neuroscience immersed in the study of genetics and patterns, and not just from a physical standpoint, but from emotional. And this book is pretty phenomenal. There's a lot of other people who do this work. I'm just mentioning this one because it's one that I highlight in our programs. And he's done an incredible amount of work where people, for example, have certain behaviors and patterns that have shown up in their life, whether it's through their parenting or other things, relationships, that they
Yeah.
don't understand why this is happening. And all these years, they've been beating themselves up and, judging themselves. But through further and deeper investigation, come to find out this was a pattern that was inherited
Mm.
through an uncle, aunt's experience that happened long ago that just came through them that they inherited. So in the same way we inherit our eye
Right.
color, hair color, these patterns get inherited. So what's
Yeah.
interesting is that we're creatures of habit, creatures of pattern. The beautiful thing about is that when we're aware of something, we have the capacity to change it at any given time. And so this is for parenting. I recognize, oh my gosh, I grew up in a Latin American household. We're flamboyant, we're expressive, we're
and
loud.
and you're in New York.
Yeah, we're in New York, we're
Yeah.
loud, react quickly,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
fast, we're fast paced. And so when I was able to see that, oh, these are just patterns. These are patterns.
Right.
So again, you don't these are patterns that I inherited. So if I want to change them, I just have to recognize their patterns. And now I have solutions to start to do, to how to change them. But the solutions for that will require, the practical and realistic solutions for that will require to do an evaluation of where you're at, right? What's going
Mm.
on, and those baby steps. Because again, a lot of people think that all these years and years and years of patterns can just change overnight. Now, for some
Right.
people, that can happen. I will tell you, because again, everybody's on their own path. For some people, they can change instantly,
Hmm.
but that has certain elements and factors involved in it that allow that to happen. But what I want to say is what's really important is for people to get out of their brain the timing issue, because I think one of the biggest hangups for people is, I want things now. I want my change to happen now. Sometimes life, here, I'll give you a good example. So as I said to you, I've been managing and operating my company for many, many, many years. I'm a very creative person. I'm very social. I love being in front of people. I love educating and teaching. And so on the management side of things, even when I managed for other companies, I was like, oh, this is really not like what I like to do. I really like
Right.
the creative side, the developing side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I had this resistance and I wanted it to happen like now, like, was it about 3 years ago when my company reached another stage of expansion? I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm done. I'm going to force this to happen. So I did just that, Justin. I forced it. Okay.
Mm.
Alignment wasn't necessarily all fully there, but I was like, no, no matter what happens, I'm going to just put people in these roles. I will
Right.
go above and beyond. So what I learned from that experience, like I learned with everything, because life has just a great way of just kicking me in the butt when I need it, is just saying, Mar, there's a reason why you're in this role. And again, be open to it, because when I try to force things to happen, life teaches me that the reason the timing hasn't worked out in the way that I wanted it is because life wants me to go through a little bit more training for a reason, to build my skill set, to build more resilience, thicker skin, to make me more of a leader, right? It knows, like, I have these tremendous goals, but for me to have those goals to play out, I have to go through some sort of training. And I don't
Right.
always see that some of that training can be the very things that I'm resisting. So I learned that when I try to force things, so the people that came in did a great job, but I also learned that I also had this capacity and this talent that my company still needed attention with. And that
Right.
if I stepped out completely, my company would lose a little bit from that. So I learned that I needed to stay involved and continue operating my company until the timing was right. And so the reason I'm sharing that is because I know there's many of you that are out there that want change like there's no tomorrow. Maybe it's with your parenting, maybe it's with your business, maybe it's with your relationship. Sometimes things happen instantly because the timing has set it up to be that way. Maybe you're ready for that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't, because you need to learn a little bit more of something. And if you're open to that, I promise you, you're going to be rewarded with some tremendous gifts.
Yeah. So how does someone become aware of that though? So let's say that you don't want to make the same mistakes that your parents did with you. How does someone actually first know that that's an issue? And
Yes.
just even because sometimes we just go through life, we don't think anything's wrong until maybe,
Mhm.
I know a lot of parents that they've had multiple kids and they're like, you know what, we should have done this or we should have done that.
Right.
Right. How does someone even identify that there's a problem? And
Yeah.
then once they do, then you already explain how to change it. But how does someone even have the
You
awareness to know that it's a problem?
Okay, I love this. And I'm glad you bring this up because I've had these conversations actually quite a number of times. So there's a few ways to have this awareness. One simply is by involving yourself in daily meditation and really doing a daily self and even weekly. I mean, everybody has their own timing evaluation, just checking in with
Yeah.
yourself regularly. Okay, that's one way. And when you do a self evaluation, you're able to question a number of things and what your goals are and where you're at, etc. And you're also able through that awareness, it's kind of like you turn on this internal observer that's not personal. You mentioned this word not personal, or this term not personal. It's
Yeah.
not personal.
Yep.
That is so important because you understand, okay, I'm living this life and I'm observing and I'm evaluating what's working, what's not working. It's not personal. And in order to observe what's working, what's not working, there's that space where it can come through meditation that gives you that awareness. However, many of us who are with our children and,
Yeah.
we've reached stages of our life where we don't have that space. It's the suffering. I tell people, if suffering comes your way, do not see it as a negative thing. It is actually a very powerful thing. Your emotions are a powerful source of communication that are giving you a tremendous amount of gifts. They are
Right.
informing you of many things. If you are suffering, if you are in pain, okay, those are the very tools that are there. It's like notifications in your inbox or like an alarm clock saying, hey, I need you to look at something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is how your awareness, if you're open to it, because what happens, the flip side of that is the victim mentality. People get stuck in, oh, this is my life. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
life is this way. And
Yeah.
there's,
Or you don't know how I grew up, or you
yeah,
wouldn't, oh, you know, you might not have a perfect life, but my life was horrible. And, you
right.
know, all these things. Yeah. I hear
Exactly.
that all the time.
Story. There's a story about
Yeah.
it. But see, what happens is that this is the beauty of it. And again, it's everybody has their own path. And there's a saying, I think Tony Robbins said this, is like, until you're going to change will happen when you can no longer tolerate the suffering. Okay.
Yeah.
When the suffering becomes greater, you're going to just like, I'm done. I'm going to change.
Right.
So for many people, they will continue to live out the story and not be in that awareness until the suffering grows so much where they cannot tolerate anymore, where they're forced to change. Right. Like
Right.
when people
Right.
ask me like, oh my God, Mar, what you've overcome, what you've done, how did you do it? I'm like, I had no choice. Basically,
Yeah.
I had no choice because I was cornered. It's like, do or die. It's like I was literally put in a situation where, oh my gosh, like I can suffer or I can find a solution at this moment in time. And it was very clear. So for most people, it may require a lot of suffering until they realize that suffering is there to awaken them to their awareness of, oh, I'm living a story. Oh, I'm limiting myself. Oh, I have these patterns. Once that awareness begins to awaken in someone, the power comes in, right? So it can happen through, and for everybody's different. Usually it happens through this path of, meditation, blah, blah, blah. Or for most of us, it happens through the suffering part.
So you hear that, guys? So if you have 3 kids, your first kid is he kind of gets the shit end of the stick. And by kid 3, he's going to be produced well.
There you go. But here's the thing. This is beauty. At any moment in time, this is the beautiful thing. Because we're one person and we're in this beautiful world, interconnected world. There's only so much we can do. And this is where the forgiveness comes in with parenting. Let's say you realize for those first 2 kids, oh my gosh, it wasn't until the 3rd child that I had this awareness.
Yeah, that you woke up.
But guess what? Can I just say, I'm a perfect example. I look at my life and I say, I'm the person in my family that woke up to the awareness, that woke up to the awareness that I could change those patterns going forward in my family lineage, right?
Right.
And for that to happen, I had to go through the patterns my parents went through. So it actually ended up being, interestingly enough, not that I wish it upon anybody, but what I'm saying is that if you happen to be going through those tough experiences, don't beat yourself up later on, because it's those very experiences that are also still giving you a window of opportunity. So I would not take back for the world what I went through. Like if someone said, oh, well, what happened if at the age of 3 you had your awareness or whatever, or your parents had the awareness? Well, then I wouldn't be where I am today, So on the flip side, it actually took, the beauty of my parents being who they are, not being aware at the time of their own patterns, that actually gave me the opportunity to be aware today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it makes sense. So I have a question about some realistic topics, right? Let's say you obviously turned out to be super successful, empowering woman, right? But let's play devil's advocate, right? What if the kid grew up and was a complete loser and he has this resentment towards their parents? How does the parent deal with that?
Yes.
Okay. After the kid's already grown up, you can't go back in time. We don't have the time stone. We're not Doctor Strange, right? Absolutely. So how does the parents deal with children having resentment at an older age?
Okay. So here's the thing. And that also works on that's a very interesting thing, because I also see this in sibling relationships. Okay. So I have experience with all of this. It's a very great question. There's only so much you can control. You are showing up the way that you know how at this moment in time. It's all what you know, and you're doing the best that you can with your ability. Every human being, and this is how I have compassion, to be honest with you. I was actually just having this discussion with a friend the other day, because even if someone, let's say that you have a parent that is like screaming and yelling and like they're acting out in all sorts of crazy ways that are not the most ideal or beneficial. Okay. And I've done that. I think we've all been there where we lose it.
We've all seen that before. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Your kid is like, oh my gosh, how could you, blah, blah, all this stuff. the fact of the matter is that I've had those behaviors, and it's not necessarily about excusing them. It's just about understanding them enough to have forgiveness and compassion so that you can evolve. So
Mm.
I realized at that moment in time, I was only acting out of habit, but also out of relief. That's the only way at the time I knew how to find relief. I didn't know at the time how to find another solution because I didn't know at the time. I wasn't aware. So
Right.
here's the interesting part. The interesting part becomes when you allow your child to understand, when you have those open conversations and you share with your child. Like I tell this to my children all the time because I'm not perfect and I never will claim to be. And I say, look, yes, I know you can't stand me right now because I'm putting this boundary down. I
Yeah.
know that screen time limitation, you hate me for it. And I'm the worst parent in the world to you, etc. But you know
Yeah.
what? It's because I sincerely love you. And I know right
Right.
now you don't see that. And I know that for maybe many years you won't see that. But it's because I truly, truly love you and care for you. And if I did
Right.
not, would not be seeing me saying this way. So I think for me, where I feel where I feel like I've reached a level of peace is when did I let, even though my child may not have the ability at that point in time to comprehend what's happening,
Right.
they are going through their own stuff and they may not have the ability to fully understand what's happening and to be compassionate toward me. As long as I've communicated to them my intentions and the ability from an authentic, real place, I feel that that helps me get through the day, and that
Yeah.
helps me be forgiving and compassionate. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll never forget, like how many times I'm calling my mom. My daughter just turned 13. I'll never
Yeah.
forget when my mom threw me a surprise birthday party at the age of 13. How pissed off I was. I was embarrassed. I didn't like it. I was going through an insecurity phase. Wow, I took it out on her, you know?
Right.
And then years later,
Yeah.
of course, when I was in my 20s, I started realizing, like, wow, what my mom did for me and all that. And here I am calling up my mom. Mom, I remember what happened. I
Yeah.
knew that you meant well for me. And, I love you so much. And thank you for that. Like, I know it's yours, but so, we're doing the best that we can. And as long as you're showing up with your heart open and doing the best
Right.
that you can to communicate, trust the process. Just
That's
trust
a
the process
yeah.
because your children also may have to go through their own trials and
Mhm.
tribulations. And it may not look so pretty all the time. And that's okay.
Right. And I think that's an interesting point. And I also think that by talking to you for as long as we've been talking, I think you've emphasized this and also you haven't, but what I've picked up on is you do a lot of stuff with empathy, right? And we don't live in a perfect world and we can hold grudges and resentment towards people and people piss you off and people do things that might not be ideal to what you believe is the right way. Maybe if they think it's the right way, maybe you think it's the wrong way, whatever. But I think the way that you approach a lot of your ideologies is that you approach it with empathy, right? Like a lot of people don't, a lot of people don't have the option. A lot of people grew up a certain way and this is how their brain is hardwired. And we're not going to judge them on that, right? We're going to make the best of the situation. And I think a big part of why you are successful and why you are such a good mother is because you see it from an empathetic standpoint. And I think it comes very clear when you're talking, whether you realize it or not. Um, so I want to ask you, we had a conversation before because we've worked together in the
Yes.
past. You said a lot of people that buy your programs, you have a huge amount of people in Japan
Mhm.
that are buying your stuff. Why do you think the Japanese and the people in Asia, um, they value parenting so much over maybe some other continents?
Well, in Spain, I mean, we have a number of countries. We're in 46 countries. I just mentioned,
Yeah.
we're just talking about different things because at the time I had just been really working to launch a press release for a Japanese market. But we're big in Spain. We're big in South America, China, we're huge too.
Yeah.
We're in so many countries and growing. You know, honestly, what I feel more than anything is that people are always curious how others naturally, we're always curious, how are others living?
Right.
And they take a peek and they watch and they see and they read and they hear. And I think in general, the United States and America or American culture, usually
Yeah.
people tend to follow what we do and our trends because we're the land of opportunity, the land of freedom.
Mm.
Many people internationally come here to go to school. Okay, so we're really known for the high education in general. So I think we really, over time, have become this hubbub or this really centralized place where a lot of people internationally feel that they
Yeah.
can gain something that they may not necessarily get in their country. Just from the foundation. I mean, obviously things are always changing politically, all of that, but just from the basis of what this country was founded on and everything that has evolved since then, right?
Mm.
Culturally,
Right.
everything. So
Right.
I feel that from that standpoint, we have a lot of interest, mainly because we are part of that. We're headquartered here in the United States, but I also see that other cultures are really noticing that we're doing things in a way that is very creative, that is
Mm.
very empowering. I feel that a lot of times things that can be so rigid in cultures can feel limiting, because I grew up in a
Right.
Latin American household, and I knew how rigid and structured that was in terms of being a woman, and what
Mm.
that meant. And so I think that in many other countries they also see that, and then they see, wow, look at how this company is growing and evolving and what they're offering. And also maybe they peek at my Instagram and see how I'm living, per se. Who knows? It's very interesting.
Right. Right.
I feel that there's a lot of a lot of things that we offer in terms of our core values and ethics and just the lifestyle that really interest people. And I think the
Mm.
team approach that we take is very interesting, and that we customize and we personalize accordingly as well. So I think that this is also part
Right.
of the interest.
Well, Mar, I could talk to you for hours.
I know.
So we're getting long in the tooth here. So I do have some rapid fire questions for you
Sure.
that I ask every guest, and we're going to knock them out right now.
Yes.
If Mar De Carlo, or if not only if but does, if Mar De Carlo had a superpower, what would that superpower be?
Oh, that superpower, without a doubt, would just be the energy, the energetic force that everybody needs to live to their fullest potential.
Hmm.
If I could just shut my mouth and be the energy that will change the world, that is, thank you. That is what I would love.
Excellent. If Mar had a billboard and she could only put one message on this specific billboard, you only get one for the rest of eternity. What
Okay.
would that billboard say?
Oh, and it has to be one word.
No, it could be a sentence.
Okay. So if I had a billboard,
It could be one word. It could be 3 words. It could be, as long as you could fit it on the billboard, it works.
okay, what I would say, because this is the basis, and here you go with the empathy. And I want to say one more thing about that too, which I want to tie in, which is, you are a powerful, beautiful being, and you have a purpose on this planet. You are loved.
Hmm.
You are meant to be here. No matter what you're going through, you are meant to be here. So no matter what challenge you're going through, it is for your flowering and your blossoming. Awaken to that. Something along those lines. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, cool. But
I mean,
moral of the
I
story
said it all of
is that,
that. But
yeah. Gotcha. All right. What books have you gifted to either friends, family, etc., employees in the past 5 years?
oh my gosh.
Besides any of your own?
So many. I am a learning junkie. I used to have
Yeah.
a library. Like when people went into before kids, now it's different. Now my house is filled more with toys and things. But when I was single before kids, it was like you walked into my place and it was a library. It's like, oh, she really is like a librarian. I have so many books from all different, from Tony Robbins to Jiddu Krishnamurti, Joe Dispenza, all sorts of parenting books, nature. If I look at even this
Yeah.
library here, health and fitness. Paul Chek. I have a
What do you
wealth.
think the hidden gems are, though? There's always books like, for me, my book is
Yeah.
Poor Charlie's Almanac by Charlie Munger,
Yeah.
and then I have The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Right?
Yeah.
What's one or maybe 2 books that are rare, that it's not very popular, it's not in the bestseller section, but
Okay.
there's a lot of valuable stuff that you can learn?
I will give you rare. So rare for me would be the work of Neville Goddard. He's a very interesting man. A lot of it has to do with law of attraction and his findings, which A lot of it is coming out now scientifically being researched and proven. So Neville Goddard is a very interesting human being. And he has a lot of work which really allows you to understand the true power within you that you have. And so that is one of the gifts that I've given people. So Neville Goddard, and also lately, and there's again so many, and it depends on who I meet, whatever, but lately another hidden gem I found during COVID. Her name is BK Shivani. You can find her on YouTube. She is such a beautiful soul. And again, it's really about taking this accountability for yourself. And so that is, I'm going to add this one little small tidbit to the empathy. Sometimes empathy does mean holding strong boundaries. And because of that, you hold people accountable in a compassionate way, but sometimes their ability, like I mentioned, even my daughter, right? Their ability to receive that compassion may not be, they may not understand it right away. So don't be afraid to have the boundaries that you need, because having that empathy, you will find out sometimes will require to have a very strong boundary. So I just wanted to say that. But BK Shivani really does hold you accountable. And she actually, if I had to choose somebody that would exemplify a being that I truly look up to in terms of how I see myself evolving energetically, obviously we're very different. But the beauty in her message and holding each person accountable for how they're showing up, it would be her. So BK Shivani.
Excellent. All right. So Mar, how do people, so what are some stuff that people have to look forward to besides your book? And maybe how does somebody reach out to you? Maybe they want to purchase your courses, or maybe they just want to talk to you. Maybe they just want to contact you, right? Don't give out any personal stuff, but what's the best way?
So parentinghealthinstitute.com is a really great way that they can just learn more about our programs. I am coming out, besides the book, I am launching a program for anybody who is in the industry of helping others, whether you're a coach or consultant, whatever capacity. I am coming out with a program that is going to really take you to another profound level of how you show up to help people. And that'll be coming out in late April, May, and I'll have more information about that in the next week or so. But you can find that out in parentinghealthinstitute.com. We have an Instagram, so you can find our Instagram, parentinghealthinstitute.com. If you want to just see how I live my lifestyle as an entrepreneur and say, all right, what is this woman who has all this stuff on her plate? And like what you said, what does she do, to unwind and to take life not so seriously, and you just want to have fun, then I have my page, Mar De Carlo, on Instagram, where you can kind of check out all that I do and how I live my life and all that fun stuff.
Do you have like a newsletter that maybe someone can subscribe to and get updates, or is that in the works?
If they go to our website and they fill out the contact form, then they will automatically be put into our email list.
Email us and then they'll get updates. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, Mar, any last words before we end this thing?
That is it. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you for the fabulous questions, by the way. Really great, in-depth questions, which I enjoyed very much. And I really appreciate the opportunity today, Justin. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. It's been the Justin Caviar Show. Goodbye.